calling the meeting to order. We have on the dais, Bubba Johnson, Patrick McGinnis, Ron Cox, and myself, Rebecca Hillenberg, which creates our quorum, and we can proceed with business. So, with that, are there any communications from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on. Approval of meetings. 3A is to consider the approval of the minutes for the November 9th meeting. If you remember, the December meeting was canceled because we had no new information to share. So, anybody have any comments, questions, concerns?
Move to approve.
I'll say.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, all those, we are passed. Moving to the discussion and possible action items. A is to discuss and take possible action regarding the downtown signage and branding project. Stephen, you're in charge.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be back. Happy New Year to everyone.
May I interrupt quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
It is 4:02 and Paul Marks just joined us on the dais. Welcome, Paul.
Sorry about that.
No,
Had trouble getting out of the office.
that happens. Thank you. I'm sorry,
No,
Stephen.
no
Would
problem.
you proceed?
Yes, ma'am. So just as a quick reminder about the downtown signage and branding project that we've all been discussing for quite some time now. Much of this is really just kind of an update to remind folks that what's taking place is really to begin the creation of the downtown, of the new expression. We all are familiar with the downtown improvement plan, with the signage and the branding that goes along with it. The city staff does continue to work with the various companies. Mostly we're looking to use the buy-board companies to try to get some of the median signage taken or to get that accomplished here in the near future. We do have plenty of the the window decals available still. If anyone would like to grab a couple after the meeting, I'm more than happy to help kind of facilitate those getting around to the downtown businesses. Myself and I know the Mayor Foreman and a couple of others do. As we peruse downtown, we walk in and we visit with people and hand out the decals and hope that they put them on their windows, like we've kind of tried to establish that partnership. One thing that we've been going over in staff, and we've discussed it in these meetings a few times, is dealing with the Texas Department of Transportation on the color scheme with the signage. We have bounced from the Houston office to the Austin office, back to the Houston office multiple times. We believe we have some pretty solid direction from them. One thing that we referenced this past week was our municipal maintenance agreement with the state, which allows us, by agreement with TxDOT, to install the traffic controls, the signage, and other things throughout FM 518. Within this agreement, there is no specific color referenced on any of the signage. I will preface this with that agreement was established in 1968. So it has been amended a few times, but mostly that's just to establish responsibilities, not necessarily for specifics. That is really all the update I have for the signage. There is the next item on the agenda is for a contract potentially, if we could move on to item B.
Please do.
So in some of these discussions that we've had, the process that we had potentially looked to have was that the FDEDC would fund the blanks for these signs, and that our Public Works sign shop would be able to put together the downtown signs and produce them and then install them, and then invoice the FDEDC for the staff services. A couple of things have popped up, one being the coronavirus has hit Public Works pretty hard over the past couple of weeks, and so our sign shop is down to zero currently, and so hopefully they get better very soon. But in our dealings with contractors, we came across Dobie Supply LLC. They were going to provide us the blanks and then said, hey, we can go ahead and make the signs for you if you prefer. And so we asked for a quote. The quote that they've given is $5,725, and that is for every sign that's in the downtown district, with very much like the mock-up that you see here that was prescribed in the downtown improvement plan. materials and the signage and the delivery is would be cheaper than it would be if city staff was to go ahead and manufacture the signs themselves on the blanks. So once we found that out, I asked them to make sure, one, they're on the buy board, which they are, which is like a co-op. We do not have to go out for a bid process. They are already okayed by the state to go ahead and provide us with a price, which is the $5,725 that they've given us in their contract. If approved, this item would move on to the city council for their ultimate approval. And once we sign on the dotted line with the contract, it's 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Once those signs are here, then city staff, public works staff would go out and install those signs. As time allows, we would try to knock them all out within a very quick time period to go ahead and get them all done so they're not kind of salt and peppered throughout downtown, but it would just kind of be dependent on manpower.
So, just to confirm, this says street and mast arm signs, so this would not be the sign, for example, that would be in the median and that sort of thing?
That is correct.
Street signs, street name signs.
That is correct. So these would be the signs that sit atop the stop signs that you see at your residential intersections, along with the larger signs that span over FM 518 and the cross streets on the new mast arms.
Thank you for all that information,
That
Stephen.
answered my question about the mast arm.
Any other questions? This is an action item if you choose to take action.
Move approval.
Anybody second? Thank you. Appreciate that. We have a motion to submit this request for payment to the city council. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, it passes 5-0. Progress is right. C is to discuss and take possible action regarding the downtown lighting plan. Stephen, Aubrey, I saw you looking across.
I just wanted to clarify for the record that the motion is to approve the $5,725
Yes,
for signage.
Yes.
thank you.
Mike,
Oh, she grabbed
I
the sign,
recognize
didn't
the
she?
rattle of the paper.
All right, this is a little different amount on this information piece. When you look at the 5,000 on the last frame that we saw, and this is 700 and some odd thousand. But Stephen, why don't you explain, please?
So this is just an update to the downtown, the lighting project that has again been talked about for a little bit now. I know previously we did have some trouble getting a hold of our lighting consultant. That's been remedied, and we continue to work with both Gandy Lighting Design and HDR to shore up the RFP that will ultimately go out. Previously, we discussed that the engineer's cost estimates, this does not include the actual fixtures or the light poles themselves, came in at $738,534. These are just estimates, so these are as close as the engineer is willing to get. Like I said, we did make contact with Lance Gandy last week. They are looking to provide the new model numbers and the updated information for the lighting and fixtures, just based upon the time that has elapsed since he first provided those. He believes that a lot of the model numbers and the SKU numbers have been updated, so he's looking to get that information to us. In just my conversation with him, he expressed to me that the manufacturers are really only guaranteeing pricing now for 30 days, and that they've had price increases of up to 40% over the last 18 months, just based upon supply and demand and the current environment out there. So we are looking to get that information as quickly as possible from Mr. Gandy. Once we have that, that is the last piece, along with just some kind of cleanup items as it pertains to foundation types, which we will know once we get the model of light pole that's going to be installed. And then some of the remediation, if we do go in and install a light pole or a foundation somewhere, if we do potentially impact some of the bricks or the original lighting that was there, what that's going to cost to go ahead and remedy that. Last year, we did talk about doing some public outreach for the lighting. I reached out to Brett Banfield with the FDFA, the Friends of Downtown Friendswood Association, and they have a meeting coming up in February. So I will be reaching out to members to see if someone would like to accompany staff to go give a presentation, much like that's happened at Rotary, and to go ahead and have a presentation, not just on a downtown update, but then the lighting as well, just to let everyone know what progress is taking place.
Questions?
Yes, can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
Please. So we're paying $738,000 for engineering documents, not for product?
No, sir. So the engineer's cost estimates, that is everything that is a part of the lighting project downtown, not counting the actual poles and light fixtures themselves. So this is the underground wiring that will have to be pulled,
Okay.
and the accompanying electrical work that'll have to take place. The documents have already been paid for by previously.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And aren't we obligated to go out for an RFP for the poles and lighting itself?
The RFP itself is going to have all of that information within it, including the poles and the fixtures itself. So that will be a part of the overall project. It's going to be a turnkey project. So it'll go from all the work that takes place underground, the foundations, along with the lighting and the fixtures. If there's any folks that kind of have any part of that, whether it be just foundations or whether it be the poles themselves, I would encourage them to just kind of watch out for the RFP when it gets published or advertised, and then they can kind of either reach out to contractors or they can look to potentially do a piece of it themselves.
I've got
Go ahead,
a question. Yeah, I know it's been a while since we've looked at the light poles, and I know, I can't remember off the top of my head whether we had spec'd those poles out yet. I know that we had looked at possibly putting, having built-in banner brackets and receptacles, those type of things. And we want to make sure we get those if we have that
The
opportunity.
previous mock-up included the color, the type of pole, the type of fixture, along with banner arms and receptacles up at the top of the poles themselves for Christmas lights or something to that
Right,
effect.
right.
And so that hasn't changed.
Okay.
And so that's what Mr. Gandy will be providing is the model numbers and the price estimates for those. We will have time once he provides that to, if there's any changes that would want to be made before it goes to the into the RFP and before it gets advertised. If anybody wants to add anything or the group wants to add anything, we can look at that.
Okay.
Stephen, there was one thing that stuck out to me, which was the 30 days possible change in pricing.
So the manufacturers right now are only guaranteeing the price for 30 days.
Correct.
So that will potentially could impact the RFP process. The cost estimates, at this point, depending on the swing on the increase, it could go up, it could go down, but that's as far as manufacturers are willing to go out these days. To be honest with the group, the cost estimates are just that. The exercise is really to see if not only the $738,000 that's shown here on the screen, but also in addition to the poles and the light fixtures, is that in the realm of what's currently in the funding of the FDEDC. If it came back at $6 million, we all know that that amount is not in the fund. If it comes back much less, then we kind of have a good idea of where we stand, and then it would go out for the RFP in that process.
Is there anything that we as a board need to do to facilitate getting that RFP out as quickly as possible? In other words, possible votes via email or a call meeting or anything like this?
No, ma'am. At this point, it is in the hands of Mr. Gandy and our engineering department, and once that document has been completed, we will have a regular meeting, and if need be, we may have a special meeting depending on the timing of when that's done, and I can discuss that with the president and see if that's necessary. And these processes do take some time just to get the bids out, and for the RFP process, many times contractors will have different questions that they would want to ask about materials or about potential timelines, And so there's oftentimes for addenda, they have to run through that process as well. And so there's plenty of time out there, but if there is a need for a special meeting of some sort, I would definitely discuss it with you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
I've got a couple.
Yes, Ron?
I can remember what they were. The first one has to do with who is selected to receive the RFP. I know you'll advertise, but we had a gentleman who spent a lot of time with us that wanted the opportunity to bid, if you will, at least on the poles and fixtures, as opposed to the installation. Can we structure the RFP in such a way that we can allow that to occur, as opposed to one company bidding turnkey, have the alternate deduct, if you will, or alternate to be able to do the lights and poles. If we can take advantage of somebody locally that can do it a lot cheaper and marry the two, that would, I think, be to our advantage. If that's possible. You weren't in a lot of those conversations that we had with him.
The cleanest way is to have two separate RFPs. What you would end up with is the potential for just for some misunderstanding between two different companies or two different models, or foundations are not necessarily exactly what's spec'd and who's responsible for what. What I would encourage is, one, that you can sign up on the city's website for these advertisements and to be aware of it. And we are not going to be shy about putting this out to make sure it is seen by everyone. But once it does, is if that gentleman wants to, if he is a part of a lighting company, or if he does work like that, he probably has many contacts within the industry on who would be bidding out the project, or he could approach others to be either a sub, or he could be the gentleman that makes the bid, or the company that makes the bid. He would basically then sub out the other work, and he would be the gentleman that provided the lights. So there is an opportunity there without breaking it into two separate RFPs.
Okay, so just to help refresh my memory, from y'all's memory, is he an installer? Or just a provider of those poles and fixtures? I was thinking, the more I thought about it, the more I think he may do all of it. But he primarily focused on the poles and fixtures with us.
Yeah.
That's what I understand, yes.
That's what you
The
understand?
purchaser of the poles and the luminaires.
Poles and fixtures,
Was
And
where he could be his greatest asset to us,
yes,
is the way I understood.
yeah.
I'm sure if we look in the previous minutes, we'll find out his name. I forget.
Oh,
Aaron Smith?
Aaron. yeah.
Aaron.
That's it.
Good job. Thank you.
But we don't want to leave him out, because he spent a lot of time with us, and
Definitely.
we can't give him a special deal, but if he thinks, his bid will be very competitive, we should look at that.
Yeah, and we should give him make sure he has the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? We just need to look back at what Mr. Smith presented and get in
Okay,
touch
I'm
with
sorry,
him.
I did have one other, and
Oh, go right ahead,
I've
Ron.
now remembered it. So, you talked about if the bids come in at 6 million and we only have 1 million, and I think we've got more than 1 million, but, can you set up an RFP where we can do phases, and maybe do a phase of the total project, even though we can't afford the total project, and make some decisions based on that, so that we could, have some bang for our buck? I think we talked about doing the Spreading Oaks area, the kind of the central part of downtown, in order to get, like signage, show people what it's gonna look like, so.
There is definitely a way to structure the RFP in such a way that it can be done in phases. There will be some logistical factors that will have to be worked out depending on what materials you put in the ground, or on the ground, or
Yeah.
under the ground, and then how long you can actually wait until lights could be installed, or something to that effect. But there is definitely a way to structure an RFP to where you want to do one half of downtown and then do the other half in a couple of years, or whatever it may be. We can, I will work with the engineering department along with HDR, who did our electrical engineering, to see which type of phasing makes the most sense, whether it's a side of town, a side of the street, the heart of downtown, or what have you, and see if we can break it up.
Or all the wiring and no poles
Correct.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that sound good to
Very
y'all?
reasonable.
Yeah.
It's an option.
Right.
And we don't know what it's gonna
Right.
look like. What I think I want you to hear, Stephen, is we're willing to look at anything to get the project done and the most efficient use for our money.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Okay? Anything else on item C? Moving to item D. Stephen?
So item D is an update to the current project that's underway with the curbs, ramps, sidewalks, and traffic signals. I apologize, that does say lighting on there, so I pulled an old slide. I apologize for that. I went out yesterday and took a few new pictures of what's taking place. On the left-hand side of the screen there is just some of the grooved portion of sidewalk that was installed there right at Captain's Corner. And then directly across the street where Friendswood Court is, you can see some of the new retaining wall and driveway that was installed there. Just another shot of some of those retaining walls that were installed. There was some question at some point with some of the elevation change and some of the existing parking lots being higher than the newly installed sidewalks. In this section here, you can see this portion of town, it has a more narrow right-of-way, so that's why you do not see the brick paver ribbon here, but you do have that retaining wall. On the right-hand side here, you see what is sticking out of the ground right there in the muddy mess. That is one of the foundations for the new mast arms that's already been poured. And they are moving pretty quickly on these. Here's one up close right in front of Friendswood Grocery. And then directly catty-cornered across the street, they just finished this one here a day or two earlier, and they are across the street where they had already bored the hole, and now they're pouring concrete for the mast arm on that side. And so just some quick notes. The sidewalk construction continues. I'm not sure if anyone has driven by, I forget the gentleman's name. It's right across the street from French Church. There's a vacant lot there that has a bunch of red bricks sitting on it. And so once that trade arrives, those ribbons will be installed up and down the sidewalks. TxDOT continues to work with French Church. If the group recalls, there was the city staff worked with Friends Church to try to get an easement from them along the road, and TxDOT ended up taking over that process and visited the Friends Church. They've met a couple of times. To date, there was a meeting last week. There's really has not been a decision made where the hole needs to go for the new mast arm at that location. It's in the existing right-of-way, so TxDOT really does not need permission per se to get in there and put in a new mast arm. However, they are working with the church. There will have to be some pretty extensive tree trimming right there, that right-of-way. I'm not sure if anybody has driven past it recently, but the trees, they overhang the street, which is by far within the right-of-way. And in fact, if you go by currently, TxDOT has staked out the property, and you can kind of see just how much those trees do encroach. So there will need to be some tree trimming, at least on one tree. But for all intents and purposes, this group and the city has kind of removed themselves from that, and TxDOT is kind of taking up that effort.
Go ahead, Ron.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask for, is there any way that we can communicate that to the people about the trees? Because when we lost all the trees across the street at the parsonage, it did create quite a bit of turmoil in the community about where the trees go and what happened. Is there any way we can get kind of a word out about TxDOT is doing this and it's pardon Pat?
Not us.
And not us, and that we can let people know what's going on? Maybe on the website? I don't know.
There's a potential for, there is a potential probably for some type of notification once things start to get a little closer to the tree trimming process, or we can add it to some items, because there will have to be some traffic controls that take place, and we can let them know about a little bit more about the project. I would encourage the group, if anyone here is on social media or visits with folks, just to visit with them and let them know that this is not something that we're looking to go do to harm a tree. This is a benefit to that intersection for sure. That the city has asked that TxDOT employ an arborist to go out and make sure that
That was one of my questions.
That was my next question,
they've
too,
asked
was the
that-
arborist.
they've asked an arborist to be a part of that process to make sure that whatever is done to the tree, whether it's trimming or the borehole itself or whatever it may be, has as little impact as possible. It is a very tight corner. The existing pole that is there with the hanging signals currently has been encumbered by the tree a whole lot as well. So it is going to have to be trimmed back some. Not being an arborist, I don't know exactly what the impacts will be, but we hope that TxDOT takes them up on the offer.
Thank you.
So I'm glad to hear that part, because we have a citizen in town who has already started some chatter on his Facebook page about that particular tree at that particular intersection, and that it's gonna kill the tree. So boy, getting an arborist on board, and I would suggest that and I know this is touchy, but if the city needs to pay for an arborist to help TxDOT make that decision, it would sure, just so long as we can have a arborist out there, maybe TxDOT's agreeable to do that, which would be great, but it would really be good to have an expert arborist to kind of deal with that particular matter. I like that approach. Has the hole been dug for the pole yet on that location? Or are they still trying to determine what that is?
No, sir. So when the church denied the request for an easement, it basically forced TxDOT's hand to work within their own right-of-way, the existing right-of-way. So they've had to relocate it in such a position that it's closer to the corner than they anticipated. It's not so much that they don't have the room for the pole where they need to put it. It's just that the trees are of such a magnitude, they're such a size, that there's no way they're not going to impact it in some way. Whether it's just trimming or whether, again, without knowing exactly where it's going to go, or being an arborist, what it would do to any of the roots or the limbs or anything like that is beyond me.
Okay, so that answered another question. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm the one that's asking all the questions here. I guess because I'm sitting closest to you. But that answered another question that I think you've answered another question I had. You said that TxDOT took it upon themselves to talk with the church about the sidewalk easement location. The last I had heard, and I wasn't at the last board meeting that we had, but the last I'd heard was that the contractor had said he's not gonna do it because of the trees. He's just not gonna cross that bridge. So what's the status of that again?
So, and we will, originally, TxDOT asked that city staff go and obtain the easements. We had some.
I'm sorry, anyway, or in deference to what the contractor had said? I'm a little bit confused.
So we'll go from the very beginning of the project when it was established that the project would take place, not just the sidewalks, but also the mast arms and everything else.
Okay.
As part of the project. TxDOT requested that the city, just being the local face, would go out and get obtain the easements from the businesses.
Okay.
So that included the sidewalks, the mast arms, anything that was needed.
All right.
In the city's conversations with the church, we were unable to come to any agreement. And so we visited with TxDOT, and they told the city, basically, we will handle it from here. Let us go visit with the church. So there's no more middleman in the process, which we were thankful for. TxDOT went and visited with the church, and then in doing so, for the sidewalk easement and then as well as the mast arm easement that would be required. It was determined with TxDOT and the contractor that the sidewalks would not happen at that point. So that's probably where you remember that.
Yep.
And then, so at that point, there still needed to be a slight corner clip for, not only for the mast arm, but also for a piece of the new ramp. It turns out that TxDOT and the church have yet to come to an agreement either. So TxDOT have moved forward and said we will displace the ramp and the new mast arm in the existing right-of-way. That way, there's no easement that's needed. So they now have a smaller footprint to work in. It just so happens that that smaller footprint is still encumbered by that one tree on the corner.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just didn't have all the pieces in place.
Don't be sorry, Ron. All of us were thinking very
It's been a
similar
while.
questions, and it's been a while, exactly. Questions are good.
I have a question. Going back to the sidewalks, I noticed that on the corner of Willowwick, there's a cable splice box that has been exposed from when the ramp was dug out, about 6 inches above, and it looks really bad. And I was wondering, I don't know who owns that. I don't know if it's TxDOT or AT&T. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not. We'll put it in our list of items to speak with TxDOT about, and we can let them know.
Yeah, what I'm getting at, if it's AT&T, I believe that they're required under the franchise agreement to lower that at their expense.
Okay.
So
That's good to
something you
know.
may want to look into, because it looks really bad.
We'll definitely visit with, we'll start with TxDOT and
Okay.
see how they plan to address it, and we can go from there.
And yeah, you may want to check the franchise agreement. I
Sure.
know with CenterPoint, I know if it was our facilities and we have to move them, that's at our expense under the agreement. So there's maybe something worth looking into.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good point, Paul, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Well done. Thank you for all that good information and the refresher course
Yes, ma'am.
in what all has been going on. Now to receive and discuss the Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation financial report, please.
Just a quick rundown of the financials from December 2021. The beginning of the fund balance was $2,342,222. We had $46,865 in revenue, and the normal $1,333 in expenditures. That is the normal transfer to the general fund for staff services. So the ending fund balance for December 2021, $2,387,754.
We're moving forward, slowly but surely. Karen, you weren't here when we looked at zero. We saw zero up there for quite a while.
It's not better than zero.
It's a lot better than zero.
I realize this is not on the agenda, but I am going to welcome you, Karen. We appreciate you being the new city attorney, and we look forward to working with you for advice, not for problems. Thank you. This is Paul Marks. He came in after I started the meeting. Paul, this is Karen Horner, the new city attorney. So, thank you. Any other comments? The next item is adjournment. I need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
That's it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very efficient, Madam President.
Yes, you